What's up, everybody? Today we're going to be making a dog kennel. I got 2 sheets of 3/4 inch Baltic birch. The whole thing's going to be made out of plywood. We'll have some sliding doors in there. I'm actually going to cut those on the CNC, which I'll show you in a minute, and we'll get everything else cut up and get it put together. Alright, so before I run this sheet through my table saw, I'm going to cut 2 feet off the end because I need this section a little different than the rest. Got my Pica dry pencil here. If you haven't seen these before, pretty cool. Nice thick lead, got a sharpener in the end. So I'm marking my 2 foot where I need my cut to be, and then I'm going to mark another 1.5 inches over to put the guide for my saw. I do not have a trap saw, and if you don't, you can just use this method. It works just as good. Of course, the setup is not as easy. As long as you have something to use as a straight edge, a few clamps, you can make it work. Alright, so right here I'm using a DeWalt cordless circular saw. I'm just checking my blade depth to ensure it's not going too far through the workpiece, even though it is hanging over the table. I cut it about halfway, support it with one leg and one hand, and that's it. Right here I'm ripping the remainder of that sheet of plywood into 24.5 inch pieces. These will make up the doors. Right here, just cutting those squares. And we'll get it on the CNC machine here in just a minute. I'll show you that. Got the program set up and we're cutting out the doors. I've had this CNC for a few years. It's a Shapeoko 3 XXL by Carbide 3D. They have several newer models out now. I don't even think they sell the 3 anymore, but it's held up pretty well. I don't use it very often, but it's nice to have around. And we're back to cutting the rest of the plywood. Cutting the rest of the pieces right now to make up the carcass of the kennel. Top, bottom, back, 2 sides. We'll get these all cut and I'll show you the dados I put in place to accept the doors here in just a second. This is the 8-inch dado set that I have. I've had it for a few years, no complaints. Always unplug your saw before you start messing with the blade, especially putting a dado blade in. Right here you can see a chart that comes with it. It tells you every chipper and spacer and shim, anything you might need for different thicknesses. For what we have here, 3/4 inch plywood, we needed both blades, 3 chippers, and 2 spacers. So I'm getting that all set up right now. I'll show you what that looks like here in just a minute. This right here is just a homemade dado insert I made for the table saw. Just cut it out of I think it was a 3/4 inch piece of pine. But I always like to slide the fence over, place it on top of that, just to make sure it's not going to blow out when I first turn on the saw. Raise the blade up a little bit, kick the saw on, make sure we're good to go. And I'll shut it off here and measure the depth I want for my dados, which in this case I'm going with 1/4 inch. 1/4 inch on top and bottom. My doors are 1/2 inch oversized. It's always good practice to grab a scrap piece of the same material to make your test cuts on before you make them on your actual piece that you're going to be using. So that's what I'm doing with these little blocks here. Test cuts, and then running my piece through, stepping it over, and checking the width. And you can see right here that door fits in that dado pretty nicely. It's a little snug, but this is before any sanding or oil or anything of that sort, so we're going to go with this. Right here I'm just cleaning up those dados, the edges specifically, with some 180 grit, just lightly sanding it by hand. Alright, I got all my pieces cut to size, got my dados cut for the doors to slide in. I have to cut, I'm going to cut grooves for biscuits to join this together. I don't have a domino, so that's what I'm going with. I think it'll be fine. I could do that, I could do pocket holes. I don't want any visible fasteners, so I'm going with dominoes. So I'll get those all cut out, and then we'll do a test fit. Once everything's good to go, we'll get it glued up. This is just a cheap biscuit joiner off of Amazon. I'll post a link. I don't use it very often, but it works good for what it is. And right here I'm cutting all the slots for the biscuits and getting dust all over myself. This dust chute points straight towards the back, which when you're using the tool vertically goes straight up in the air. Not very convenient. But it's got a tiny little dust port. It's pretty hard to find a connector for that. You can see here now that I have the slots cut in the base, I'm bringing one of the side pieces over and marking the location of those, so I can cut the slots out in the sides. And one side of each domino slot I oversized a bit in case there were any alignment issues that would not give me a problem. Alright, we got all the dominoes cut. We're going to do a test fit now. Got some number 20 dominoes. I said dominoes. These are obviously not dominoes. Biscuits. I'm sorry. Right here I'm just working on the dry fit, getting all the biscuits in place, all the panels in place. Got the doors on. We're going to get the top on here and see how everything fits together. So I'm going to have to cut this groove, this dado at the top a little deeper because these doors are holding me up. Doors all the way down and all the way against the top. I'm going to cut a little more off, which sucks because I already took my dado blade out. Or don't be stupid. I'm gonna cut the doors down, that'll be easier. So I'm gonna cut about a 1/4 inch off the doors. I've got about an 1/8 here, and I want to have about an 1/8 of play, so I'm gonna cut a 1/4 inch off those. Alright, I got these doors cut. Let's try the fitment again.
Beautiful.
Now, showing you guys my mistakes. This, I probably should have stopped the dado before the end, but I'm gonna cover that up. I'll fill it in. But you know what, actually, this is gonna get edge banding, so it doesn't matter. As you can see, doors slide freely. Got these dados, top and bottom. and I will wax that up after I finish it, and I think it'll work out good. Dry fit went well, since I cut the doors out. Everything fits good now. I'm to the point where I can glue the box together. First, I'm going to take these doors back off. I'm going to do a very slight round over with the router around these edges just to soften them up. And then we'll throw them back in there, put glue everywhere, and clamp it up. Let it dry for a bit. Well, while the carcass is drying, I'm going to start putting edge banding. Still haven't decided if I'm going to go with veneer edge banding adhesive or I'm going to glue pieces of solid wood on the edges. Alright, we'll get that figured out. Right here I'm doing a slight round over on the doors. Well, I say round over, I'm actually using a chamfer bit, but I have it set so shallow that you can't really tell. It almost looks like a round over. Just making a pass along both sides of these grooves. I'll flip the door over, do the same thing, and then we'll get a light sanding, and then they will be done. Again with the DeWalt random orbital sander, just hitting them with some 180 grit. Just take off any burrs or anything that's on there. Alright, we got it taken back apart, got the door sanded off. We're going to go for assembly now. So, I'm going to take the biscuits out. Got some Titebond 3, Titebond 2 would be sufficient. My silicone brush, glue bot. I'll put links in the description for the tools and supplies I used. Hey, if you're still watching, please subscribe. Like this video, I appreciate it. Now for the good part, time for the glue up. I'm getting the glue in all the biscuit joints, getting them in place, and running a bead along where each panel will meet. Try not to get too much in there because I don't want to make a mess with the squeeze out. This could be a pretty intense glue up with all the different panels and pieces that have to interlock together. It ended up not being too bad. I wasn't going to put any fasteners in here, but it ended up being too much trying to hold all these panels in place, so I just put a few 18 gauge brad nails in that back panel just to hold it together while I get the rest going. And move on to some sawhorses so I can get these clamps rolled back. Got the assembly done. Just need to wait for that glue to set up. I'm going to put some edge banding on here, and I have to make some legs for this. And then we'll be on to finishing. Alright, I'm going to see if we can get some edge banding on here now. Just a disclaimer, I generally do not like edge banding. I just don't trust the adhesive. I thought I'd give it a try for this project though and see how it turned out. I think in the end it looked good, so we'll see how it holds up. Alright, got it all complete. I'm going to put some finish on it. I'm going to use this Watco Danish oil in dark walnut. We'll see how it turns out. I'm going to get it all wiped on. If there's any excess, we'll wipe it off and wait a little bit, maybe put another coat. Right here I just have a lint-free shop rag. I'm just dipping it in the oil and rubbing it all over. It goes on kind of like stain. You just apply it kind of liberally and then evenly spread it out. Let it dry, and that's pretty much it. And here it is completed. If you have any questions, let me know. Look forward to next time, and I'll put links in the description for everything that was used here. And this was a commissioned piece. If you would like a cost breakdown, let me know and I can provide more details on that as well.